It is. Oh, yes.
Evening. Let's welcome everyone. Ask everyone to rise as we call the order. You'll pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this point, we will be taking any public comments. Anyone who wishes to address the board on the topic shall be recognized by the chair and limited to their comments 2 minutes. And if we have anybody who'd like to address the board. Going once, going twice.
I do not have anyone submitted me any written comments, and I don't see anyone online.
We're moving on then to approval of the agenda. I'd like to ask someone would entertain motion to approve the agenda.
So moved. Move to approve the agenda.
We have a second. Aye. All in favor of approving the agenda? State as aye. Excuse me. Bear with me, folks. Day number one. We will now have discussion. Is there any discussion on the agenda? Approval of the agenda, excuse me.
To change a couple items on the agenda. I could, please. On the agenda, we need to correct, last item on the agenda. Could be a 13 rather than 12. Under A, new business. We'll also invite other board members to the board orientation session. That's where we're welcome. Under new business, item F would be how to fill vacant executive committee board positions. The terms ending June 30th. And then under old business or unfinished business, you can see ratification of the March 8th, 2023 library board actions.
What was new business F? How to fill executive positions?
Fill the second board.
To fill the vacant executive board positions.
Starting on the 30th of June, right? Is that what it is?
Pardon?
Starting on the 30th of June?
No.
Oh, when does it go? Prior to it? Prior to it. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
In July, here we have new elections.
Okay.
And all offices. So whoever would be doing it. would just, you know,
Check it out.
but we need to get that part started. That's why I wanted to.
Oh.
Is there a second to the motion?
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor of amending approval of the approval of the agenda? All in favor by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried. We will now go back to the approval of the original agenda as now an amended agenda. I'd like to entertain a motion.
Jim, you made the motion, correct?
So
Do we need to vote on the amendments, is that, which we just did?
We need to,
Yeah.
you know. I'm sorry, Chair. If you made the initial motion for the agenda,
Mhm,
we've now done amendments to the agenda.
mhm.
Will you be willing to change your motion to the amended agenda?
Sure. Yes, I move to make a motion to approve the amended agenda.
Second,
You were the second? Okay.
all in favor of approving the amended agenda? Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. We'll move on to the consent agenda, including approval and affirming of the March 8th, 2023 special meeting minutes and of the February 23 financial report. Let's entertain motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I make a motion.
Motion's been made. We have a second. Okay, been made and seconded. No discussion, we'll go to the vote. All in favor of the approving the consent agenda? Signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed? Motion carried. On to the breakfast report.
Okay. So. We had quite a few things going on. Is there anything in particular on the report that you'd like to discuss?
I didn't have anything today as well, so have anything in particular that wanted to address with Pam?
So I can.
You want to hit a few highlights, certainly that would be.
Sure. So we have several new board members. It's my suggestion that the board consider setting dates for workshops. So to get some additional trainings, just to to kind of really go in depth of what the manual is. A few that I suggested was to have Claire, she's the Library of Michigan's library law consultant, and do training on the updated trustee manual that you all have. So she's been doing that at many other libraries and for many other boards. So I recommend that. I suggest we have Carol, the Lakeland director, come. She would have been here tonight. However, she's been called to a public school board meeting to speak on intellectual. However, she's willing to come at any time. So that would just be helpful for everyone to have that. Put some meat on the bones. Other things we're gonna go over, like the budget and.
Discussion. Regards to the director's report. And there. Now we're on to unfinished business. And the approval of budget amendments for the tech improvements from 3.8.
I think, we talked about this last month. We have enough money in the budget. I think it's just waiting to decide when we would like to implement those services. There's kind of a wait to see if Algoma were to merge or if we were to do the ADL. So I think it's just a matter of timing, but
Yeah.
everything's still up and running.
Yes.
Adequately, there aren't any concerns. Okay.
Further.
The server is running fine. Actually, our IT person is coming tomorrow just to do some normal maintenance, so he'll let us know if anything pertinent needs to be done before anything is decided on contracting library services.
I mean, I think there's gonna be a lot of decisions made between now and even May, so I think it's just factoring all those different decisions that different parties are determining that could possibly affect us. So again, if it's not a move that we need to make right now, if we can wait, I think that's okay. That's what we've discussed before. So it's up for discussion, really. So what other questions you would, I mean,
Can I ask- Sorry.
Seems simple then, make a motion to accept the treasurer's recommendation that we hold off on the amendments to the check.
Can I ask just one question? Are there any things that are woefully deficient that would not matter on what decisions we make that would be good to do?
No,
Okay, thank you.
There is a motion to, if I heard you correctly,
Accept the treasurer's.
Accept the treasurer.
Yeah, treasurer's report. To, not, approve the treasurer's report concerning the amendments for the tech budget.
without budget. amendment.
Yeah.
Motion's been made in the second.
I'll second.
Okay. We'll take to discussion. I've already had discussion here, but officially we need to have discussion on this vote, so. Any other discussion? I think, Tim, your point was good, though, because we've talked before about one landline.
Right.
And
yeah.
that still kind of grinds me, like fingers on nails on chalkboard.
Mm.
But yeah, we do need to be looking at what's urgent too.
And do we have, is or charters our service?
Mhm.
They haven't done anything with fiber optics or anything around here, have they?
Not to my knowledge.
I know that Point Broadband has.
Yeah.
It's Point Broadband has fiber in Cedar Springs, and they're at my house. So if we want to up, it might be worth looking at Point Broadband to do fiber. It's a little faster, and much safer and when. And if you rig up your.
So there's some need for the committee's bones there. Yep, we're now going to vote on approving the treasurer's report. Without budget.
Jim?
Tim.
Pardon?
Yes. All in favor of approving the budget as such, signify by saying aye. Both. Motion carries. Second item on the unfinished business, approval of budget amendments from the 3/8/23 meeting. This is more a matter of just making sure the board has got a grasp on everything. Any motions?
There will come a motion. I don't know if you want to talk about it now, Shelley, or you want to talk about it during the
business.
committee report.
You can do it during the.
This was just the budget for the current year we're in.
Right.
Right, well, they will be one needed, so I don't know if you want to discuss it now or.
It's the retainer fee for the attorneys. $2,500. So. Yeah, we really, I think initially going into this year, we were anticipating needing support from an attorney, so we do need that $2,500. And just looking at the line items, Amy, if you can help me out.
Yeah, it's 801.
So.
So you need to increase line item 801 by $2,500. It's professional expenses.
Bring it up to $5,500.
So, okay, so I'm gonna look at, are you looking at? Looking at this is what I'm referring to right now.
Yeah, you'll want to be looking at the revenue and expenditure
Does it? Okay.
report.
Oh,
Okay. Yeah. So right now it has $4,500 in there, is that what you're?
Yeah.
Okay, but that's what it started out with.
Yep, that's what was current, that what was, it's what was budgeted for the year 22-23. But it needs to be increased by $2,500.
It's still 9801, correct?
Right.
Mhm.
No, that's.
Agreed with amendment of the treasurer.
The public. Roll call vote.
Yes. Okay, everyone's going to roll call vote. So Tim?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Yes. Oh,
That's,
Nancy, that will increase the
Professional,
1 professional service expense from 4,500 to 7,000. Motion is carried.
and then we have to talk about which account we're going to withdraw the funds from.
so if you look at your balance sheet. Under. Fund balance on the bottom. You need to decide which restricted account. You would like to take it from. So either 375.6 or 390.
Are there any pros or cons to using either one of those?
Not to my knowledge.
I think those are the ones that the principals never pulled, it's just the interest.
That's the 383.3. We're looking at the ones that say operations. It would need to come out of one of those.
You said 3.
So 390 or 375.6. The operations. Those are both operations.
The only question that I have is between the two. Is there a limit as to which one is being pulled from at any point in time? Any other ruling restrictions?
Not that I'm aware of.
What's that?
Is there any limit on our limitations on the two different funds, the 375 to the 390? Both the restricted funds, are those ones that have 73,000, ones that have 161 balance? Is there an advantage for one over the other?
I'm not aware.
I'm
of
not-
any
yeah.
Operations, that is more so functioning of the library, like for operations where this fantastic on this. The restricted library operations, for this situation, I think that would probably be.
Have a motion on the floor to pull from the funds from the 390 account.
Make the motion to approve the amendment as proposed by the treasurer. 390.
We have a second.
And
Mark. You're gonna help here. Does this, we still have to do a roll call vote? Is it still the same amount? Yes. So we'll do a roll call vote, yeah?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Motion passes.
And then would Darla actually make that transaction?
The train, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Approval of the budget amendment for the 3/8/23 meeting as stated with the current amendment of adding the $2,500 coming from account ending in 390. We have a motion to approve the treasurer's report on the budget with this amendment. We have a motion on the table. Have a second.
I'll second.
Second. I'm just gonna stick with the roll call vote here since we're still talking about the same amount of funding here, the adjustment. Them?
Yep.
Yes. Oh,
Yes.
there you go. Yes. Motion carried. We have item C, which was added, the ratification of the March 8th, 23 library board actions. And the agenda earlier tonight. Do I have any motions on the floor?
I make the motion to ratify the action statement from the board.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Just because this is my first go around, can you explain to me what's different between approving the minutes and this motion?
Approving the,
If we accept the meeting minutes, aren't.
I'm gonna defer to the second, this one, because maybe I'm not understanding the question.
There's four people, including agent Brandon.
Okay.
And he was voted in as chair. We want to make sure, since all seven of us here, you guys know the transactions were and stuff and that. Don't have any problems. Which is ratify the actions taken by.
I'm still really confused about where Bob Elick resigned. EJ came onto the library board. It's my understanding there's a public meeting when that takes place. And I did not see the minutes to it, so I would love to see the minutes. Maybe I just missed it.
Writes the minutes. That's so.
It is,
Okay. I happen to be in the meeting. I ironically was there when the meeting was being held and I did pop it. And so it actually.
I'm not doubting it. I just think it's really important to follow procedure because they can't have done. If we need,
Yeah.
we need to have public participation.
Ready? Your question is whether AJ was properly put in.
Yeah, I'd just like to see the minutes to it, be follow procedures.
that would be added into the notes.
Okay, this is from the, I got you.
There's the secondary.
Since he's asked to have that be part of the records when we see the board back out next time, it will be part of the minutes. Become part of the permanent record that will have in the office.
Was that why the special meeting was called? Why, I got lost here. Because I
February
didn't see anything different from the.
February
two agendas,
27th, meeting was canceled.
Which doesn't have the power to do that from what I've seen. I need to see that, like, I need you guys to talk to me about the bylaws, because all I'm saying is. The meeting, all of the dates were set by the board, so only the board has the ability to cancel that. Or to change a meeting, like no, one person can say,
Executive.
I mean, I can't say.
Well, you've got an executive board, you've got the vice chair, the chair, the treasurer, and the secretary.
The vice chair held the meeting.
The vice chair, for me.
But the vice chair is not in order, it does not have the authority to do so unless you're in a meeting. The chair is the only one that holds that authority outside of and during a current consistent time period.
That's not
is
actually true.
Like, I'm sorry, I'm gonna get elevated.
I'm sorry, Mark.
I have been looking at this for a month in the bylaws and there are, like, so we need to go through our bylaws and do some updating and clarification, because they're way general. Nowhere in here did Bob even have the ability to cancel the meeting. Or the executive board, nowhere in it does it say that, it says the board does it. And when I did research with the rules and talking to different people, they said, like, if it's set by the board has to cancel. So I'm just like.
For you on this one, Tom.
Yeah.
We kind of had this discussion.
Part of the bylaws. On the organization operates, and we're sort of loosely following Robert's rules.
Mhm.
The board has voted executive committee. Just like the personnel committee, the bylaws committee is made up of 3 members. The treasurer,
Where's-
secretary, and the vice chair,
Okay,
right?
Where is that in the?
where is it in the bylaws? So it's.
I didn't bylaw. It's what we've done by custom and tradition for years.
So it's not in the bylaws.
I need to.
We make the recommendation to the chair. And the chair, the chair would come to us and say, hey, I want to hold a special meeting, or we have this thing coming up. How do you want to handle it? And we would advise the chair as to what's going on.
Okay.
If you look at the bylaws, the chair is the spokesperson for the library board.
In which
Outside,
bylaws?
inside,
In our bylaws, he's the the chair is the spokesperson.
yes. So he's the one that would go out, in the community, he's the one that goes into meetings and stuff,
Mhm.
proposes things for the library. The vice chair, the secretary, and the treasurer advise him. But the only authority we have is in the meeting itself. If the chair is not here, the vice chair holds the meeting. If the chair and vice chair are not here, the treasurer does. And if the treasurer is not, then I do. We've got our officers listed like that in their duties. Robert's rules talks that custom and tradition override Robert's rules. We've done this, I've been on the board since 2008. This is how it's operated for all these years.
Custom and
It-
tradition is why we have distrust.
Part of the problem is we haven't had an orientation with the board to let them know what these things are.
Can I go to 2A here on the vice chair? Because you said they don't, but like, this is my understanding when I read it again. As my third meeting, like the vice chair shall have the power to perform the duties of the chairperson, the absent of the officer and such. Other duties as the chairperson of the board may direct. Does that not give them the power when they're here to act because Bob was out of town? Cool,
Bob
Does
being
that
out of
make it-
town, that's the chair.
but if he's not here, in the absence of that officer, makes the vice chair.
There was no meeting, that's what he's trying to say, there was no meeting in place at that time, the call becomes the chair's call until there's a meeting, once there's a meeting, you're absolutely right, the vice chair would take over at that point. So if the chair said, no, we're gonna hold it, and the vice chair is gonna take over and run it, then great.
I respectfully disagree with your reading of that. Because Robert's rules supersede, if it's not addressed in bylaws, it goes to Robert's rules.
No,
And it, excuse me,
It's not there.
and Robert's rule,
superseded by the bylaw.
excuse me, yes, but it is not addressed in the bylaws. Who can cancel the meeting? It's silent on that. So the meeting should be canceled by the entire board.
In the past, it's always been an executive committee advising chair. In this particular case,
So the executive committee would have included the vice chair at this point.
yes,
And did she advise the chair?
she wasn't answering the phone when we called her. And treasurer couldn't get out of her house. Secretary couldn't get out of his house. School buses were running on only paved roads only.
I picked my children up at school at 3:45 that evening.
And I drove them.
That's what was told. Tons of schools had closed.
Not Cedar Springs Public.
I'm just looking for clarification on the bylaws. Can we dive into our bylaws here? Because I don't go on that committee, like just say, hey, let's set some policies on this is what our board is.
The chair,
So it's clear.
Yeah,
see, the thing is just the chair being out of state or whatever, does not remove him as chair.
No, yeah, and I'm not saying that we're losing this chair.
Well, the vice chair did.
The vice chair acts in their stead is what the bylaw says.
They're not, he's not gone.
He is not, but he is absent from the meeting that was scheduled and approved by the board.
Until
in January, December.
Starts. That's when the vice chair takes over.
You know, if I can just
Read it that
make
way.
comment here, I really feel that this could be addressed by clearer bylaws, so perhaps
Yeah.
that is something we could look at,
And
some clearer bylaws.
Yeah.
he's going, the chair has an item on the agenda.
Yeah.
To us, ask for volunteers for committees and stuff.
Yeah.
Volunteer for it. Go for it, because we got openings.
I agree, but there, you can't have bylaws, being super generic.
It is,
Like,
yeah, well,
it's
it's
clear.
not like that.
And I understand, because even when I read it, I thought, well, there's certain things that can be read in.
Yeah.
I deferred back to Bob and to Tony and their experience, and actually Mary Evelyn too at the time. I actually had to have Mr. Hoskins pick me up because I couldn't get out of my house. And I'm pretty daring. I'm not afraid much, so. There was justification, I guess, is the bottom line on that, whether or not there was immediately here. I think it comes back down to, and maybe this will be something that we probably should add onto our list of questions for the attorney when we ask them. Say, what do we defer to at this point? If the bylaws aren't clear, then where do we go to?
I would also say, if there is something that's a general custom that the board has done in the past. Perhaps then it's worth putting it down in writing so that it's clear, because there will be turnover in the board at some point.
Yeah.
And it would be better
The
for,
way to address that, is you don't have to change the bylaws. You just do standing orders. Which is the next thing underneath the bylaw. Is the board has a standing order that if this happens, this is what's gonna go.
understood, I just think for continuity's sake, if it's in writing. Then you don't have to rely on.
Well,
anything else.
that's a standing order. Right?
Where are they?
Well, so I got this big huge fat binder when I came on to the board, and I see no standing orders there, so I wouldn't know if it was. or
I'm saying,
Yeah.
that's how we could
Yeah.
address it,
Uh,
by having a standard order of. Standing order is that whoever. The chair cancels a meeting
sure,
with advice of. The executive committee.
yeah, and there's no criticism in what I'm saying, I just,
No, I
Thinking that-
understand.
yeah.
totally.
thinking that if it was clear, then we wouldn't have to wonder, yeah.
This is how public trust is eroded, which I think is not being clear.
And. Like I said, for the bylaws and stuff. In December, when we did the bylaws. Tammy did a review of them and did not recommend any changes. So the board approved.
Sure.
That's something to look at for next year.
Yeah,
It does state that if it is quiet, it is to go back to Robert's rules.
It's in that one.
Yeah.
Well, so it doesn't count. We're in canceling a meeting, that's what I learned. That's all like, yeah, I
What
was
that
like,
basically says is that no one can cancel
Cancel
a meeting,
meeting.
which is ridiculous, as we all know, there are reasons meetings to be canceled,
Yeah.
but.
Yes. I'm gonna take notes here. If, just before we leave this point, if, any of you have any input, and I will bring this up when we actually have the, other committee appointments, but I would appreciate, and I do, this is not a one-man, two-man, three-man show, this is all of us, so I appreciate any input you can give on on the bylaws and what you see.
Yeah.
And again, this, just like the idea that it falls back to Robert's rules. I mean, I'm still learning too, so.
Yeah.
I appreciate anything you can get to me. And Tammy's been a big help now lately, and so is Tony, so I greatly appreciate that. There is a motion currently. Go back and see here. To ratify the library board actions on March 8th, which that actually had nothing to do with the previous meeting. That's not March 8th.
Yeah.
Okay. Sure. And it was seconded. Any further discussion?
Can I just ask one question about the special meeting? Was the purpose of the special meeting to essentially perform what was expected to have happened in February instead of when it was scheduled to happen? Is that correct?
That would be pretty much correct. I mean, the only thing I could think other than that,
We had the agenda from February.
right?
It was the same agenda as what was gonna be done in February, is what you're saying, yeah.
Here.
Same.
Yeah.
I said that this.
And that should be in the packet. Motion,
Very, very good discussion.
Yeah.
I lost them.
Yeah.
Keeping eyes on it. Make a difference.
For sure.
all in favor of ratifying the March 8th library board actions as presented, signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried. New business. First point, approval of Tim Smith, the trustee to the board from Cedar Springs. I joked with Tony earlier when I got this, and I kind of laughed because the city gives us what the city gives us, so there's no proof, so this is more a matter of us approving it, welcoming you, so thank you very much, and how we're doing it, all for Mark and
You.
well, not for me, I'm sorry, but thank you all. Appreciate it.
And the addition under that was to try and schedule a board orientation.
Yes, yeah, just that.
We're gonna try to do that. meeting. Take about 10-15 minutes and just go through some of these things. So everyone's working on the same page.
So to do the orientation at the next meeting? Is it-
That's what we're.
Okay, perfect, cool.
So-
Yeah, that works so well.
I would like to officially ask for, well, actually, I would like to actually make the motion and this one to approve and welcome as a replacement for Karen Wrangler, Mr. Tim. Any second? I'll second.
We don't really have to approve though, right?
This is just a welcome and any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Jim, do you know when Karen's term ends?
It was sent to me, but I don't have it on the top of my head.
Just drop a line to me or so,
I will.
email to me, let me know,
Yeah, I would.
and put it in part of the minutes.
I think I can look it up before we leave and I'll tell you.
Next up is the finance committee report. Shelley?
All right, so everyone have this?
Yeah.
Grab on it. So the finance committee met last Monday with Tammy. And we did kind of go through line by line and take a look at her original proposed budget. There were some areas where we did increase the revenue. You want me to go line by line to show you, and there's a side by side, so you can see where the proposed is, and then the after. With the amended proposed. So if you go down the line, it's fine, to see where those adjustments were made. So for example, Solon Township, they contributed more. So the proposed was 85,000, about 89,400. USF funds E-rate, that was 0. And that's kind of not a consistent form of revenue, and it does fluctuate year to year, but $2,000 is the average. So we did that in donations, that's highly variable. But our community has been wonderful with donations, so we did add $4,500 there. We took away some of the funding from the telephone expense, so we understand that can be all agree at some point. We need to have additional phone lines, but like that, right now, we can put that on the back burner. The internet, we did add a line for that, where we didn't before. With the overdrive program expense, that included Hoopla. Can we talk about Hoopla?
Sure, so Hoopla is another app that provides more services than Libby. So it has movies, more selection that you wouldn't have available on Libby. So something to think about in the future. Now, that doesn't have to be Hoopla, it's just prevalent in the library world. You could think about, if we're gonna look at streaming movies, Canopy, and then it's just movies. You could look at things for magazines, pretty much anything you wanna look at is out there to add as additional resources. There's LinkedIn Learning for anybody who wants to learn, but it's mostly professional learning system. There's Creative Bug that is for hobbies and interests. You know, we can look at a number of options.
Currently, we offer none of this. Correct?
Correct. Other than Libby. We have Libby, which you can get electronic books, electronic audio books, and magazines.
So for now, we temporarily reduced that to, was originally 10,000 and we reduced that to 3,000. And hopes that we will have additional funding at some point to include Hoopla, but right now, we limited. For teen books, that's a new area that has been added, which I think is a great idea. Initially, it was allocated $5,000 and we did reduce it to $1,000. I think in the conversation, we talked about teens really liking their phones, and there's a lot more programming for children and adults. And I think the checkouts, there is a correlation between how many materials are getting checked out before or after in class. So
Wait a minute. So we're not buying a ton of books for teens because they have phones?
What was discussed, Heidi, is that they may be using more electronic books than physical books. We don't know. To be honest, we don't know. Because we can't tell by checkout who's checking out what materials. So I didn't have that information to present. So when asked the question, I can't say no, they're not using more electronic resources than physical resources, and I'll never be able to answer that. Because we by law cannot track that.
Absolutely.
Especially when they're sitting out front on the benches during the summer reading books.
So the children, last year, it was the children and the teens, they both had a lump sum, so that was combined. So now we're differentiating the teens, the children, and the adults. So now we can always acknowledge the teen section, and we are allocating $1,000. And that's a start.
I buy a lot of books.
So do I.
I buy a lot of books for libraries and for teens, and I just want to point out $1,000 is almost nothing.
So then we have the special programs expense, and that was $8,000. And we reduced that to 6. And with the capital technology, that was at 15,000, and it's at 7,500. So what we did leave is the wages. So there's a 4% increase for full-time employees, and 4% increase for part-time employees. And also the social security expense months, that was at a 4% increase, so we left that alone.
Can I go back one
Sure.
little step? Did the children's and teens budget overall stay the same? But
No.
just split up?
It went up together because I think. So, and can't remember what it was like last year's, but I think it was around $5,000 for children. And teens, and now we have $6,000.
So it went up by a couple thousand as a group. But then the 1,000 is dedicated. to this.
Right. And again, we're still. Proposed, still, we're working through the numbers, there's still a lot of variables. So this is what we came up with.
Yeah, and that can be amended during the
Yes.
course of the year, is that correct?
So last year, the 22-23 budget for children that included teens was $5,200. And adults was $6,500. So it's an increase, but it's not much.
Yeah.
It's minimal.
When did you, know about something?
I have a question to the finance director, and I'm waiting to hear back.
I do appreciate there being a wage increase. I think that's really important, but I do want to acknowledge also that 4% is not meeting the crazy inflation that's going on right now.
Originally, that was when it was addressed, I believe, we said that it was like 8%, and then
It is.
Tammy mentioned that.
It's 8%. Well, current inflation is 8%.
We don't, has that court case been resolved yet about, the increase in wages in Michigan?
I think it's still in appeals. There was a lower court decision. I think it's being appealed to the state Supreme Court. So minimum wage currently is 10.10.
Right.
But it could go up. Once it gets to am I correct, Tim, that it
Yeah.
is? Yeah.
Definitely could go up.
Mhm.
And, you know, all businesses and places of employment are kind of waiting. Many are waiting to see what happens with it. Because it could radically change the picture.
The personnel committee, one of their jobs is by July 1st to come to the board before that, hopefully, with a set a wage scale for that year and the next year. So finance committee has got something to work with when they go out budgeting and stuff.
For how that
One
is.
thing we could do probably to raise the book stuff is to do some fundraising from the community to try to get books. You know, I don't know if
Well, currently, we're asking them to give us funds for summer reading. That's the current ask.
I'm still really confused about why Solon Township and the city of Cedar Springs pay such an inequitable amount.
Fortunately or unfortunately, that's certainly not on our topic for discussion as far as how we're following it, but we can certainly add it. And you can address that in board comment.
Certainly.
so
We're on finance.
the motion. No?
Well, kind of. I mean, I don't know what we need to do from here, so what Darla would need from us. What did
She needs just this draft. And again, the city understands it's a draft. They understand it's gonna be amended. They would like it technically needed to have board approval before it went there, but that date came and went. So, in retrospect, of course, they would like to at least have this draft budget approved. And then it can be massaged, you know, up until,
I think we've got that on D under. That's where we do the motion.
Okay, so we still have a deficit of 22,860, so that looks like another.
so, yeah, so again, you'll need to decide which fund you'll want to take that out of.
Is that an often, a new first year on the board, does this often happen when there's a deficit?
Normally,
Like, welcome.
normally you balance out
Okay, so what's the difference, inflation or?
fundraising.
The difference is that the collection budget has not increased. And, well, it's been my understanding in 5 years. So I'm asking for that to be increased. I'm asking for services to be increased. I'm asking for special programs to be increased. I'm asking for the services and collection piece to be increased.
You notice some raising the cereal.
We put 4,500 in for donations.
Now, is this again, I'm truly asking, is it a common practice for public libraries to rely on fundraisers to make their budget?
It was not at the last library that I worked at. Were there donations to the library? Yes. Did the Friends group supplement some programming and summer reading? Yes. But their collection budget? No. At least at the one I worked at. I can't speak for others.
What was it you're trying,
It was the same.
we're at 4,500? I mean, realistically,
Better?
It was just you.
Oh.
Sun was shining on
I
you.
think it still is. I think it still is. I mean, I reached out to Sparta because they're a very similar community. They're the same class size library. Their budget is 288. That was for last year. I know they're going to increase it for this year. Again, when you talked to Carol, the library, the cooperative director, she put some things together for you to show you where we're at in funding compared to the rest of the cooperative. We're low.
Sparta's not in a great place either, but.
No, she suggests looking at Lake Odessa, who is a class smaller, but yet they are higher funded.
It seemed a really uncomfortable place to rely on fundraising for budget.
I think just when the building, I wasn't part of this, so.
And I wasn't either,
Or,
so.
But I think they did provide alterations.
For a capital campaign, absolutely.
Right.
It's, my concern is an ongoing
Right,
every year, that's a concern.
so like,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, capital campaign is one thing,
right.
Right.
But I think they just got used to the income, like back in 2019, 2020, it was 35,000. 2020 to 2021, it's almost 28,000. And then 2022 is around 10, so I think, yeah, we need to find some new form of revenue because that was very temporary, to kind of get things going.
it just seems an undue burden on the community, and it seems like we're relying on the generosity of a few people, a few great people, and public libraries funded by public funds.
There are people though that like to contribute, so.
Absolutely, but I'd rather see that as a memorial bench or, or a book that they, dedicate to their grandma. It should be that sort of thing, not a this is how we're keeping the doors open.
Certainly, there's funding to be figured out as we move forward. You know, as a general.
Also, as Shelley mentioned and Cammy mentioned, we're not locking in, that we can't make adjustments here. This is because Darla needs to get the numbers.
Yeah.
Cammy, we were pushing Cammy, I think, here pretty far in the holding pattern, which. That's not, I mean, I understand there's a lot of moving parts right now and a lot of newness. But we have to get to the point where now we're moving something forward, even if it's now great, let's adjust. If there's an issue with a specific targeted campaign that we can use for something. I agree, but maybe it is a matter of just saying it's like tips. I mean, if that's the case, great, then what are we gonna do on the other side of things? And then we'll just have to start moving with finance committee and saying, what is the next step?
Yeah, for example, are there other models that libraries are using to raise funds as a more general practice? You know, maybe, I don't know what it would be, I have no idea.
You know, in the past, we used to get grants,
Okay,
and I tried to follow up on one of those that we used to get regularly, it was GTE.
okay,
We used to give us like $5,000.
sure,
We don't do that anymore.
okay.
Yeah, that's the problem.
That is,
Year to year.
yeah, that is the thing. Even the grants that we received last year are not being offered. So again, depending on that, it's just, it's not a guarantee. It's could be there last year and not, again, not this year. They're there.
That's fiscally responsible person.
Any further discussion? Right now, we're discussing the report, are we? That's my understanding, that would be actually, this is approving the report, and then if we need to add any kind of changes to it, we can do so next meeting. Am I incorrect?
Yeah, but you'll want to decide where that's gonna come, which account is the fund balance is gonna come out of.
CMD business, review a draft budget. Work of doing the report.
There's a motion on the table to accept the finance report from Shelley. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Personnel committee report.
I just got added to it, so we haven't had communications. Well, we're working, we are in contact with one another.
This is for the evaluation. Okay.
I promise you this.
You gotta hold those problems, yeah?
Please. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
Can we do that? Is that out loud? Because when I was reading it, it was something like within I was going through these, like, we have to send it out to each board member to get their.
What they did in the past. Before email was handed
Yeah.
out. Now that we've got email and everything else, they would send it out to the board. Email wise, just send it out to everyone, and then we would send our responses back. And then that committee would then
Okay,
put them all together into one report.
is the board okay if we did it as a Google form? Where it collects the data for us. And puts it into categories so we can quickly look. I guess that's my question.
It's,
Like I can create the
however, the
question.
committee wants to.
Is it? Okay, sorry, that's what I wanted to know. I was like, I don't know, because I'm looking at this and like, I don't know what it is. Is everybody cool with it?
Hey, listing anything?
No, yeah.
You're the committee.
Yeah. No. Yeah. we can- Each one, yeah. We're gonna get this. I'm just trying to make sure.
So,
So we're looking at developing this form for to be used at the or for the next meeting.
Yeah.
So if I, okay, so if it becomes an issue or you can get it sooner, certainly
Yeah.
forward it to our board, we can actually to Tony and we can roll it out sooner than later.
Okay.
Thank you.
so agenda item for next meeting would be. Would we be ready for an evaluation next week? Next week?
I think we should be fine, yeah, as long as it's response.
Pardon?
Yeah.
No, sorry.
The other action item is the wage guide for job classes for approval in the June meeting. For the personnel and compensation committee, the evaluation form was first as a follow-up, the second was wage guide for job classes for approval by our June meeting. And normally, as last year got approved in July. After the whole new board was voted in, so now it's. According to Bob Ellick, he told me that should be done by June. So that way before,
It would come effective July 1st. Usually what the personnel committee would do is they give us a 3-year recommended scales. And then each year, we could just go through and approve, in our June meeting. Okay, here's one for July 1st to 24. You would approve it. Personnel committee wasn't squeezed so much to try to come up with something. If you don't have them in your handbook, I can give you some samples of what you used to have in the past, just so you can see what they look like.
and is that something Louise can help with or no? Okay.
As far as wage scales, that's in the finance committee and the personnel committee is. Okay, you want to pay everyone $20 an hour, and the finance committee is going to say, "Oh, wait a minute." You got that in the budget.
Okay.
So we've got the evaluation for next meeting. And we have-
Seeing that the policy and bylaw and technology, although these will be quite active, I think in the near future, the technology committee don't have current follow-ups unless I'm speaking myself.
We put out technology update. The technology plan should be part of your books. Comes out every 2 years, same as the bylaws. Because we'll put a budget in there for, I think it goes through 24, doesn't it, Jamie? Pardon?
Yes, I believe so.
It gives the finance committee 2 or 3 years to work with. And time, so they're able to plan in the future. If you haven't seen that or whatever, just let me know and I'll send you a copy of them. And it should be part of your book.
It was in last month's packet as well, I believe. I believe it was part of last month's packet.
The other follow-up on the committees was the policy. Tony was in the process, needed input from Tammy to bring updated next board meeting, so he's April.
That's those FOIA forms.
And technology was the server, which you've already addressed and. All right. Finance committee.
Review of draft 23-24 budget. This is where we're gonna move the money next month.
I don't have anything more to contribute, so I don't know if anyone has questions. Talk about that
Well,
or.
yes, someone had mentioned about amendment to move some money
Right.
to help.
So we're at a deficit now, 22,860.
Limit us though in replacing that as well, if we do end up with grant money or what have you.
Correct, correct. It's just you're addressing what where it stands right now as this draft budget. If we had to go with it, where is it gonna come out of? Is it gonna come out of 375.6 or 390?
Same question.
Same, yes, correct.
And there's no real advantage to either one.
The only
Not that I'm aware of.
advantage is the one, seeing that it's a larger fund, might be easier to pull out of that as a plan if we needed to. The other one, I don't think there may not be enough interest in there. I don't know what the balance was, because again, we couldn't get any information, so.
Those are the balances. The only one that you cannot touch and the only thing that you can use as interest is the Cleo Coles. Otherwise, the rest.
So
Can I just make a statement? And I don't mean to put anyone on the spot. If there's anyone in the audience who has a feeling about where this funding should come from, would it be okay with the chair if they spoke to that?
Certainly open.
Wasn't the money from CBDT that was set up for the funding of the library to be used in cases like this? And if so, did you go through that money already? Or is there still funding in the money that was, I believe it was 125,000, I believe that's what was given to you guys as extra to help fund you.
I think they've got it still.
Then why can't you take money from that fund?
That's what we're discussing. That was the fund, because
Yes.
it's now, it's beyond 125, it's at 161,401.
Yeah, but it was given to you in these, for operations, for this kind of. Because we knew, all right, I'm speaking as a former board member. And I was part of the library established building this building. We knew that it was gonna be tough for you guys. To maintain the library services on funding. So the CBDT was gracious enough to give us $125,000 to be used in situations like this. So I would suggest that you take it from there.
That's the one we were discussing. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry, I will eventually get the names. Erla. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Entertain certainly a motion to pull those needed funds. So we had total increase.
$22,860.
$22,860 from, that would be fund ending in 390.
Going to where
When I look-
Well, it would go to cover multiple line items.
Right.
'23-24 budget. on taking the 22,860 from line number 390. I'll balance out the various line items.
Thanks,
One second.
any further discussion? As it is a large lump sum of money, we'll do this by roll call vote. Tim?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh,
Yes.
Yes.
motion carried. Your assignment of trustees to committees. Thank you for those who responded today. I agree, that makes things a little easier because we're all here to make things move forward, but I appreciate you all, we're willing to dig in and bring your experience. I know Heidi in the book side, and Tim, you, I can't sing enough, and I really do appreciate all your help on that side of things. There we go. I would ask for volunteers. I've kind of pre-led you a little bit. And we're gonna start with Tim. I've asked you to consider the Personnel and Compensation Committee, and then also the Finance Committee. Sure. And Mark, I've asked you to help out with the Bylaw Committee, which I think works out great, especially since you already started digging into it.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, no, and I appreciate that because I've been going through this book like it was nobody's
Oh,
business,
yes.
and then Tony tells me you're in the wrong.
Oh, you're in the wrong edition. Yeah.
So needless to say, now I get to go do this all over again.
I'll tell you what, having it on your tablet is much easier.
And the other one was the Strategic Plan Committee, which is it's a temporary committee as of right now, but definitely needed. So I thank you for that.
Me and Heidi,
Which one? I'm sorry. Yep, you, Heidi, and Tim.
thank you.
Appointments will run through the June 30th, after which time the new chair can appoint committee members in July. Also, with the filing on these, or with the filling of these committees, I would like, and certainly any board member is welcome to attend other committees with the understanding that they are not a voting member. This is strictly for assistance in specific areas. I need to know who's going to be listed the chair when you hit those committees, and what other issues are needed. So if you can kind of get that to me when you meet with the committee, it would be really helpful. I appreciate that.
You get out, I can't keep this straight in my mom brain. Can you get out a list of who's on what committee?
Yeah, we'll be.
It's updating.
Perfect.
I also have some telephone numbers from you guys and stuff. We need to make sure it's updated. If you could just send me the stuff.
Sure.
We're looking for name, address, telephone number, email. All right, and when your email is specific to the library.
And under new business, the final one, F, filling executive board positions. Which there's currently one that will be open, so if you are so inclined to fill the vice chair, please let Tony know and he can get you a copy of the duties. And you can kind of get that process. It's only till the end of June, but still, it would be nice to have that filled. You never know what's going to happen, and it's better to be prepared. The committee reports, we've kind of covered most of those, with the exception of on the Finance Committee. Showing that's, you're up on this one.
Well, they,
It's all been
We did.
covered.
That was the line item.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Reviewing agenda items for the April 24th meeting. Anyone have any items? Obviously, that you mentioned bylaws, so I think we need to put that on there. who's only- Problem is that the committee has to certainly meet first, so
Yeah.
do we want to address this as bylaw committee review suggestions at that point?
Yeah, that's right.
Is that doable?
I just heard Mark say,
So-
you remind me, Wilson. Sorry, you remind me Wilson's on that committee.
Bylaw committee had, Hilbert, Armock, and a vacancy.
Okay,
Which was.
just wanted to see how on that.
Which is now Mark.
Yeah.
Mark?
Yeah.
What we can put on the agenda then is, down at the bottom where we have committee reports. You could do a report, and if there's something that we need to approve, we would put it on the next agenda as an action item under unfinished business.
Okay, sweet.
Partly what that does is we're able to discuss it. And when it comes time to vote on it the next month, most of those questions have been answered in the email.
Sweet.
At least that way it won't be sitting, bylaws will be sitting kind of in the background.
Yeah.
So we've got the evaluation.
We do also have, we're gonna have that as an agenda item, or does that fall also down into the committee section?
If the personnel committee is ready. Just let me know before the agenda gets locked in. Put it on. Tammy. You have up until the time of the meeting, and the evaluation, to say whether you want a closed session or open.
Yeah.
All right, you don't have to make the decision until that point. If you get those forms out to everyone and we get them back to you. The week before the board, you lock in the agenda and send it out. It becomes public at that point. The only time you can do it after that is when we go to approve the agenda, like I did today. People had asked me about Adam, but I can't change the agenda until now. Any questions on that?
Mentioned the,
People who make the agenda are the chair, the director, and secretary. That's in the bylaws.
I didn't hear this.
Fine.
My question was, you mentioned the, we're adding the agenda items for the next meeting,
Yes.
and you mentioned, with regards to the evaluation form, that is something that we actually have to receive at that meeting, or are we receiving it prior to? Is this is the part now where I'm
The
getting.
indication I got was that they were going to send it out by email.
Yeah, I'll try some, yeah.
So we should have it before the next meeting, and then we should be able to turn them all in together at that meeting. Is that
No, you will send it back.
beforehand? Okay.
Guys are quick, remember? And I like us old farts.
Man, he's good than me. So that was gonna be,
And if you need me to send anything out, whatever, just give me a holler. And I think you all have the group email on CS Library. And that's got everyone's current email addresses in it. So if you do that as a group, everyone gets it.
one of the other agenda items, that I'd like to be on there the appointment of the executive committee board officer. Which again would just be effective, but if anybody's interested, it'd be nice to get this resolved the next meeting
Or the vice chair, is that?
of the vice chair. And another item, adding board orientation during one of the meetings. And we talked about a couple different things here, but I think part of that is having it, like Tony mentioned earlier, is having it during a meeting. So even if it's at the end of a meeting, we can kind of glean that and not have to put everybody through that training if they don't want it.
I'm open to suggestions on the agenda, so just let me know when most of you guys tell me. You want it here or there.
Is there anything, Cammy, you mentioned a couple different,
Well, they're gonna be longer than 10 minutes.
okay,
Yeah,
I do notice that you send out stuff, Preston training.
Mhm.
Everyone should have gone through trustee 101 and 102 training. I think I've sent the links to Kim.
I've already completed one.
Okay. Michigan, the library in Michigan highly recommends trustees go through it. But it's not a requirement. And I would suggest, because you can get the webinar right off on the library's website. If you can, I got the links and send them.
it's useful.
did you send those before?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So we've got, report by the bylaws committee, appointment of the executive committee. Directors evaluation. And, board orientation.
And one other, we will be following up on any actions regarding attacks on personal board members for council. That will be addressed once we just get to discuss with the attorney. So that's post. But that will be on the agenda. And between now and when the packet comes out, if there's anything else needs to be added, please get it to Tony, and if you can, CC me, so I kind of at least have a heads up, because I'm trying to keep him so busy. I've been hounding him, and I hate doing it, but I do appreciate everybody's input, Earl, especially you. I mean, I don't know what I don't know, so thank you. And right now, we're gonna switch over to board comments. Anyone have any comments?
I know for the next agenda.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'd like to make sure that we delve into the issue of live streaming the meetings,
What?
live streaming meetings moving forward.
Finding out the cost and
And
Okay.
live streaming the meetings,
Oh,
costs involved, whatever we need to do to logistically to get it to happen.
yeah, because there's
would that be discussion then, or?
probably because I think that there may be some equipment that's already purchased.
I know that we've got a projector in here for this screening and stuff.
And so
It's still active.
we could explore like what else we need. At that point, and then maybe in the meeting following that, make any decision.
Cammy, you said Nick is gonna be here tomorrow.
Mhm.
That'd be a perfect time to talk to him about, what we can do.
I don't know where this equipment is, or who has the equipment, or what it is.
That's good. Let's talk
So-
about it.
But he may be able to give you some ideas of the equipment.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Clearly, there's over the past little while and probably into the future, there will be decisions made that are impactful and interesting to the community, so they should have that.
Question on live streaming.
I'm still, further discussion I have, this is not a direct attack, this is not an attack on you, AJ, but, I am wondering about conflict of office.
Round of board comment. I'm sorry.
Um, this is just, I mean, this is a matter of public trust. You're on the Solon Township Board and you're on the library committee, and I'm confused about, whether that would be a conflict of office.
No. That's why we did that, because we wanted to make sure that articulate the challenge that came about, the reason Bob left was not that he had to, because he was requested to be on, but because he is the Solon Township Supervisor who is tasked with appointing.
Yeah.
So as board member, I can't vote, I have no say in it. Bob just says this is how it's gonna go down. Obviously, the board does have a say, and he doesn't not listen, but in the end, the attorney did suggesting, he said it's not illegal for you to be on it, but obviously you don't want any kind of impropriety or anybody thinking something different. So of all the people on the board, you should probably just move out and let someone else take your place.
That was the recommendation to Bob.
It was, yeah, that's what Bob got. Bob, and he didn't have to, he told him this is not like a mandate, he just said, I recommend it just so that way there's not gonna be any kind of future issue brought up.
He was on the board since probably 2008 or 9, since I have.
Understood. Again, not similar to the bylaws comment. You know, it does make sense for us to make sure that even if something was done in the past, to make sure that as we move forward, that everything, whether, you know, obviously if it's a legal issue that is illegal, then for sure the choice is clear, but even if it's gray.
Yeah.
I think as a board, we should come to decisions about whether or not that is wise. I think certainly over the last little bit, it seems that the message that I continuously have heard and feel myself actually, is there needs to be trust in what's being done. That seems logical and smart and not super complicated.
This will go in the packet, it's available to the public.
Yeah.
I think that's helpful too. I think
Yeah.
that,
And no offense whatsoever to your comment, that's why, like, your whole point was, we do want to generate that. And
these questions need to be answered. It's not, and it's nothing personal. It's
no, and how can you have my back if you don't have that confidence? I mean, that, as a board, we have to be really cohesive. So I totally agree.
Yeah, and we're likely gonna be having more discussion about this as well, but you know, I think we have an answer to that question, which is good. You know, it does seem smart. Once our attorney is secured and everything, to just ask it one more time. I don't think it hurts anything to have double confirmation, if that's the way that it goes. And so.
well, we have an attorney
We're-
retainer though. so-
Yes,
There are
Yes,
several,
on the place.
there's several questions that we're gonna propose to ask this attorney that we're putting on retainer.
This is not the independent library board attorney, this is the
No,
Solon
no.
Township guy, okay.
And so,
And we can ask them too, that's fine.
yeah.
I mean, I'm assuming lawyers are acting in faith, but excellent. More transparency, I think we need a
Well,
board,
and he'll get,
independent lawyer.
and I think we can forward that to the attorney once we know he's got the funds.
something that we need to mention is Solon Township and the city appoint people. Once you're on this board, you're a trustee of the library, not representing the city of Solon.
Right.
Everything we do is for the library.
Correct, that's my point.
These issues and stuff pop up. But we as a board need to work through them. Right, and find a resolution to them, and if we can't, that's why we have. You know, the attorney or retainer, stuff like that. And we go through issues. we have board meetings for it.
Yeah.
Come up.
Yep.
If there's something you would like to discuss on the agenda, you can put it under board comment and say, discuss issue of blah, blah, blah. So that everyone knows we're gonna be discussing that issue. You can be prepared for it. If we don't talk about it, we don't get it together. We're gonna be fair game, right?
Well, I think that's essentially the idea is. Solve it, move on, yeah.
Any other board comments?
Just the discussion, the Lakeland coming in for workshop, and I guess Carol was trying, Carol Dawes, head of Lakeland. She was going to be here and then got called into intellectual freedom thing, like Cammy said. We did get this from her and, this is a worry. We're very low on funding. We're coded down here in severely underfunded. Our collections per capita is $75 per capita, which is low, very low. And it's a concern.
Tammy, can you get a hold of Carol and find out what commission might be available? You can let me know so I can get out to the board. And they can get back with me and say, hey, this is the best for me, and I will let you know. Is that possible?
Yes,
Pardon?
yes.
One other note that we came across recently, and the board needs to be aware of this. We were presented in a public forum that KDL is becoming in and charging a millage of 1.1. Currently, the people in Cedar Springs are paying 1.2267. ADL comes in and puts 1.1. That doesn't wipe out the 1936 millage that people voted for the library. It doesn't knock out the 1 mil that the city put on in 2013. We should have been paying this 1.22 since then. They haven't.
I really think that the biggest issue here that needs to be discussed among the whole board is this inequitable. Funding. Solon Township doesn't have a dedicated millage, correct?
Pardon?
Solon Township does not have a dedicated millage toward the library, correct?
They have a percentage 0.4 mils, I think.
Based on point four.
But it's not a
Out of their
dedicated
gen-
millage
out
to
of their
library.
general fund.
On the general fund, so
Right,
in essence,
definitely.
it's an equity, it's the same, it's the same amount, same thing, whether you're billing it, but if the residents of Solon Township took on the 1.1, that's going essentially for them from 0.
Yeah, I get that, but you know, I really think that this is a discussion this board needs to have.
They'd still be paying the 1.22.
His point is that
I'm
That's
not,
the case,
I'm not the least bit interested in KDL. Okay, I'm not interested in discussing KDL. I am very confused about why.
Have you read the letter from
I have read the letter. I'm very confused why this has gone on for, since I was a little girl. Since this has gone on for so long that the city is paying more money for less citizens than Solon Township is. And I'm not asking tomorrow for y'all to go out there and propose a millage to your citizens, but this has got to be addressed somewhere.
One way we could address it is going to the Solon Township meeting, talk to them.
Yeah.
Going to the city council meeting, talking to them about what they're looking at being equitable, because one's a city, one's a township. They've got different amount of people in both of them. Amy, can you give us an idea of how many Cedar Springs people use the library and how many Solon?
But I'm not sure that matters. I'm not sure
It's
that
all based,
matters.
it's all based on taxable value.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line.
I don't know that we have to split hairs about how many people use it. I mean, when you look at like fire, please God, I never want to use the fire, but I'm glad I pay for it. It's not anything that needs to be addressed right at this moment, and we're all looking pretty tired, but it's an issue, and I also wonder, and maybe it's not for the library board, this truly is a matter for the municipalities perhaps, but we're looking at a contract that doesn't look super equitable to me.
Well, that's,
And maybe there's no, I mean, I'm not on the library board, I'm not on the city council, I'm not on Solon Township board, but
you know, if it comes down to it, it's the contract that Solon Township and Cedar Springs has that they both signed and they agreed to, and the contract goes in perpetuity unless either one of them cancel it.
so maybe this isn't even my issue. As a library, perhaps this is not my issue, the library board.
If it concerns the library, I think it is your issue. I don't disagree with that.
I mean, we're looking at a deficit of $22,000 and very generous people have an account with 160,000 in it. I mean, I'm minored in math and I can see that the account's gonna disappear pretty darn fast.
I kind of have a piggyback on that, but I don't wanna.
No, I'm fine.
Is there anybody else? Because I only had 2 items, so. I want to give everyone else a chance to. Did you have a comment?
Participation,
Yes.
yes.
I'd like to recognize Shelley. You've been here for how long?
2.5 years.
Yes. Yeah, thank you very much.
Remember your word.
Still gonna be one. Be wearing one.
So we're looking for a vice chair and a treasurer.
So now there will be 2 spots if anybody wants to come in and volunteer. This is not one that I can just automatically appoint, so. 2 comments. One, I do want to thank everybody. I know I'm kind of new kid on the block and I stumble a little bit through things, but I appreciate all your help. Tammy has been, I can go around the whole room here, but Tammy, you've been pretty much very quick on the spot to answer things that really help. And I know that's technically your job, you're the director, but it doesn't matter. Even in meetings, you've been very responsive in township meetings and things. And I can see that you have a love for what you're doing. There's not even a question. So thank you. And Tony for listening to me. With me about the same thing.
He's burning up the minutes on my cell phone.
I'm gonna have to compensate you somehow on that one, maybe. Ball game tickets or something, right? But thank you, and I do appreciate it. And anyone who has comments, it's certainly helpful. Anyone from CBDT, please, the history helps huge. Especially when, again, I don't know what I don't know, but I'm learning a lot. When we go to discuss the on the money side, and I do want to make sure that we're kind of addressing that on the finance committee, so maybe you might be interested in the treasurer position. Just
I don't have enough going on.
no, I hear you, I hear you. Just think about it for a minute. Second though, I do have to address this. Unfortunately, this is one of those things that I really wish I could avoid, but unfortunately I can't. And I did give you, I gave you this, and I looked back into the record, then anybody can get copies from Tony. Mary Ellen, I am very sorry that you had to endure, and I've written this, so I make sure I'm very clear here. I'm sorry that you had to endure despicable and slanderous attack, which also appeared to be an egregious deviation from Robert's rules, which the city had claimed they follow, but did not at their last council meeting. For example, there was no confidential committee to investigate the charges.
There was no hearing held. And there most certainly on any, as to any defense for the accused was not permitted. This board will not accept or condone such behavior to its board members and will be following up with action in the near future. That will be sought to be done. With that, I'm close to it, sorry. Oh, there's one more item. We are canceling the closed session because that's. We decided against that. And
Motion to adjourn the meeting.
Shelley has made a motion. One second. Any discussion? All in favor of the adjournment? Signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned.
Thank you, everyone. for coming.
Thank you.
I need it sent out.